Bien, je pense qu'on va pouvoir commencer.
So I think we can start now.
Bien, bonjour.
So, hi everybody. The whole team and I are delighted to be able to welcome you here in Paris, particularly here to see each other in Paris. And for those of you who can't be with us, well, obviously you'll be following at a distance through the video conferencing system. So welcome everybody for this new shippers meeting. Just so for those who would like to have translation, we have simultaneous translation, of course, and we have these headsets which are available for you. So if you need one, then please go and get a headset. All the slides will be in English, and we will be speaking in French. Now, for this new shippers meeting, without further ado, I'd like to hand over to our Chief Executive Officer, Dominique Moclier. So, Dominique, good morning. Good morning, everybody. And first and foremost, thank you for being with us here today. For those of you who are actually in the room, thank you, and therefore the others by video conferencing. It's a rather particular moment, of course, for everybody, and this is a meeting that we're organizing in a rather special financial and geopolitical context, and that's why, in fact, it's very, very important that we should take time with you to explain how this new campaign will take place. We'll go back over the regulatory measures that have been taken. That's why it's very, very important to be able to discuss with you these measures and look at the perspectives for the coming year. I'd like to underline a few fundamental points for this new campaign. It's at a moment where storage is very much at the center of our preoccupations. Obviously, storage has obviously been our main preoccupation, of course, and storage is absolutely essential for the market so that you can function. But gas storage in the various territories are very, very important for our security, energy security, and obviously in the current geopolitical context, context has never been more true than it is now. But despite this very particular context that we find ourselves in, the system that was set up in 2018 will be functioning perfectly for the coming winter with the storage capacity which is already full. And it's thanks to all of you, I would say. Everybody has played their role, and you've filled your storage capacity. And I think that the conditions in which this new winter is coming is good conditions, I would say good. In fact, obviously, we hope that the gas supply continues to arrive through the various connections. But the fact that our storage capacity is full at the beginning of winter is a fundamental point which reassures the market and obviously which allows us to foresee the future. And another point I'd like to make is that we, obviously, in our relationships with you, what we obviously, one of the key words is continuity. So we will promote a system which means that despite the conditions of this coming winter, the storage is full, and we will continue to listen to you, and we will offer you tools which are, with flexible gateways, for example. We're trying to sort of adapt our offer so that it meets your requirements and it meets your requirements for the security of your operations, and so it means that globally, in fact, we are meeting your expectations. So those are the main messages. In fact, I think everybody has done their job very well to prepare the coming winter. The conditions in which we'll commercialize gas, of course, those are established. So thank you again for being with us. Then without further ado, I'll hand over to our technical teams because they will explain how these auctions will take place and go back over the previous campaign and what we can learn from it. So it's an absolutely important moment for storage, which is, of course, one of the pillars of the national and international storage capacity, of course. And a final message is the message that we got across with the winter outlook, with the scenarios that we presented with the GRT gas we organised recently, and now I'm putting on my transporter shippers cap. In fact, we are mastering how we withdraw gas throughout the winter so that we are able to go right through the winter. And obviously, we know that a winter is always obviously a moment with some tension, but we will be managing the storage capacity so that we make sure we get right through the end of the winter. Thank you for your attention.
Merci, Dominique.
Thank you, Dominique.
Bien. Merci, Dominique, d'avoir lancé.
Thank you for getting the ball rolling for this new shippers meeting, and I know you're waiting for them with great impatience, Gabriel and Fabrice, who will be now going into the nitty-gritty of the offer and how we've prepared this new shippers meeting. Some of you are just coming on. There are a few sort of latecomers coming in now, so we'll just make sure that we take all the time we need to explain things, and some of your colleagues will be joining us in the coming moments. But what we've planned for this meeting, during this meeting, is mainly these 6 points. First of all, we're going to go back on the European and French regulatory context. I'll give you a few more words about that later on. This regulatory context and the modifications that have taken place in the last few months, this is really the sort of the pillar, which is the sort of the backdrop, if you like, of the offer that we will propose today. So I'll give you a few words about that. Then with Gabriel and Fabrice, we'll really get into the nitty-gritty. We'll go back on the storage year 22-23, and then we'll look at the winter outlook and maintenances 2023, and look at what that maintenance is, so that you've got that visibility that you need for 2023. Then after that, we'll go and look at the storage offer per se, products and services. You know, there's still that sort of corporate visibility. We'll make sure that you've got that continuity of offer, but there are one or two adjustments, and we will be able to talk about that in greater detail later on in the morning. Then we'll look at the new marketing calendar in practical terms, and the relationships with the public consultation which the European Regulatory Committee will be launching. And so we'll present a timeline for the auctions, the forthcoming auctions, and then Patrice Begbede from the client department will be looking at the different tools that we have and how we can facilitate your business day in, day out with the operational screens that are available on the customer's portal. So Patrice will be talking about that at the last part of the morning. And then we'll be closing the session, and Gilles Doyenbourg will be coming in for the final part of the session. So that's really the session today. And of course, you can ask your questions, so please don't hesitate. In fact, at the bottom of the slide, you've got the instructions for and the code for asking questions. So what we propose is to sort of answer the questions at the end of each session, if you like, or each section. But please don't hesitate to ask any questions you may have. So that's the menu then, if you like. So to get into the business per se, as I was saying, we're not going to spend more time than necessary, but I think what's important is to go and look at this regulatory context which has evolved, because storage of natural gas is at the heart of everybody's preoccupations, and not a day goes by when you don't see some article in the press which is talking about the level of preparation for the winter, how are the clients going to get by, so on and so forth. So, you know, we're very much in the public eye at the moment, and all of these problems and issues, they obviously concern all the countries, but certainly on a European level, because we have a new Gas Storage Act, which was published in June 22, which has already been published but already amended regarding security of supply. There was the 1938 law, of course, and we've got the access to transmission next, which regarding the Gas Storage Act. So which is really, you know, very topical at the moment. And in France, we've had the Purchasing Power Act, which was promulgated in France, which sort of provides a sort of a protection, if you like, for consumers and operators, both on national and European level. Of course, there's this underlying worry of how we will get through the winter. How will we be able to fill our storage capacity? And the question, obviously, is still an important one for the following winters thereafter, not just this winter. So in France, in fact, we had the Purchasing Power Act, but obviously not all the texts which have been published at the moment, so we don't yet have all the modalities of those acts, so we don't have total visibility as things stand, but we think that within the coming months we will have much more visibility there. But globally, in fact, things have moved quite a lot in regulatory terms, in European regulatory terms and in French regulatory terms, and as Dominique was saying early on, 2022, we can consider that 2022 as things have gone pretty well. at the beginning of spring, the situation was less reassuring. We really didn't know where we're going collectively, but 2022 has gone off well, and it's largely thanks to you, because you played the game with commercialization and filling capacity, and so we're obviously very happy with the filling levels that we have, and things are going well, but of course, history is not finished, because 2023, 2024 is on the horizon. So we'll have to do almost the same, in fact, to make sure that the forthcoming winters, subsequent winters, go off just as well. So before handing over to Gabriel and Fabrice, so the take-home message, I would say, is that for next winter is maximize injections, and the message we'll like to, obviously get over to you, but come back to it later on. But this is fundamental to the good equilibrium of the whole system. So as I was saying, in regulatory terms, things have changed. This is sort of made the system more secure. So just to say a couple of words about that before we get into the nitty-gritty with Gabriel and Fabrice, but we'd just like to sort of just go back over the campaign that's just finished, and then the campaign which is just opening now.
Well, thank you, everyone. Good morning. Thank you for the people here in the room. Thank you for those who are listening. Yes, as we do every year, we come back on an overview of last year and our commercial results about the marketing campaign for the last 6 months, and we make comparisons with previous years, and we will look at the future to come. Well, people often ask us, all this information is available on our website. Well, these are the results and trends of the past few previous years. And as you can see, as from 2020, there's a great stability in your participation and results of the auctions in terms of allocated capacities. And after 2 years of regulations, once TRF was set up in November 2018, this unique market has made Teréga's storage capacities more attractive for operators who didn't used to work with us. So we've had 35 participants in our auctions, so we have 30 customers, and people also ask us about our results, and the auctions generated 64.3 million euros of revenue for 22-23, as opposed to a generated income which matches at the calendar year. And so the revenue from this direct auction is 64.3 million euros. We've had better years, but we also had worse years, and so we will tell you about our outlook for the future. So we wanted to focus on what happened over the past few months. We've had our classical operational activities and injection points, and due to the exceptional capacities, we've made some measures which we're not used to. When we communicate our offer every year at this time in October, we give you all the information available to us at that date. I'd say products, services, calendar, maintenance, products. But this year, due to this specific atmosphere in the gas industry and about filling, storage and filling, so we have adapted to all the changes in regulations and looked at what was possible to try and support better and earlier storage. So you may have seen, or we will remind you that we have suspended UBI withdrawal from August to October at a time when in July, let's say before the summer break, the authorities, our regulatory authorities were anxious about the situation of storage, even if finally the results were good. So in fact, we wanted to send them information, but saying that we didn't want, through an interruptible service, we didn't want to favor let's say, opposite results to injection. So this is why the duties, and for those who didn't use them, we will not be remarketed, because we do not want to encourage withdrawal at a time where everybody wants to reduce, to increase injection. And so it was just a measure of a communication measure, and CRE, which CRE accepted. Now we look. So it's also we also increased some gates. As you know, we have 5 gates. It's that injection gate at July 31st, which is flexible, and the maximum limit is uplifted to 95%, and we know that our storage by July 31st cannot be over 95%, but considering, well, depending on the circumstances and the market conditions, if there is, if any circumstance would favor injection, we can increase that maximal threshold, and also on the basis of other operational considerations. So before the end of July, then, this is why we decided to uplift this maximal limit to 95%, and that was also appreciated because there was interest in injection beyond 75 and even over 90%. So we will repeat this type of operation in the future because we have a standard offer, we have products, capacities, this will not change, and we have services which we may adjust it in the course of the year according to the regulational operation or market circumstances. And the third point on these commercial measures that we launched in the middle of the summer for the same reasons was to say, isn't there a way at a time? You have all of the Storage Act Youssef mentioned that said that the member states had to reach a storage level at 80%. The French Prime Minister announced that in France we would be at 100%. And of course, but that was the announced objective. And we see, how can we at Terega help reach that objective? You know our volume, marketable volume at 103%, but technically, if we add all the technical capacities of our reservoirs, we can do much more than that. And we contacted CRE and said there is a way maybe to try and mark not an additional product or only volume, but having a new additional service to allow our suppliers to go beyond their capacity if we have this maximum capacity ourselves. And this is 103%, let's say an additional tera, which could be absorbed in injections. So we had an initial subscription phase in which each of the shippers could subscribe up to 103%, and we had some delta left, which we sold in another auction. And this, we've had a high subscription level, a high demand, And you can say that the Terega storage, we have a filling capacity above 100%. And as I told you, well, there was this operational, more communication campaign for withdrawal. Also, we've been able to meet that objective from a technical point of view, and the whole system is benefiting. And even at political level, that was, as you know, good at the individual grid and collective grid to show these rates above the maximum capacity. So this is to remind you that we are able to adapt, how to react, and we have a high perimeter, we have rules, we have a regulated perimeter, but we also know, and knows, that we can go beyond our limits, and of course this is showed that things that we can reproduce in the future. For those of you who attended this meeting last year, we also spoke about some specific products. We had short products, we have that's reverse products. But these are things we have been looking into and that we might be able to repeat in the future. Unless you have questions, and we will answer all the questions, or if you want, we'll also have a session of Q&As at the end of the presentations, and we'll also receive questions even if you're online. If everything's clear, I will now give the floor to Fabrice Conque, who's our Transport and Storage Account Manager. Well, thank you, Gabriel. Well, thank you. Good morning, everyone. We have decided to share a few slides with you to illustrate what Gabriel has just explained about this injection phase. First of all, so we're going to show you the usual curves that you know, the graph, and you can see in this yellow section, you can say the minimal and maximum capacities over the past 4 years, and you have it dotted lines is the average filling capacity, and the blue line shows the injection line for this year. So you have some red points, which show you a level gas storage in April, which is higher than the average over the past 4 years, because in March we already had some market conditions which favored injections. So some of the shippers had already started injecting gas. Then we had a gate on 31st of July, by which we did not go above the 75% of the storage. And so, as you can see, we've been well beyond that gate, because we reached 95% of our storage capacity, and now we are at 101%. We injected again last weekend, and so these are the conditions for injection at Terega. We didn't reach the record levels in 2020 when we had gas at €5 per megawatt, but as you can see on this line here, close to the gate of 31st of July, the shippers who had the storage capacities had been forced to withdraw in order to pass that gate. And thanks to that, we set up this flexible gate scheme, which allowed us to go beyond the 75% storage capacity. So this is the general curve, the general outlines, in order to give you overall results at Terega. How did we reach this situation? As you know, so you have storage products which allow us to inject at what can be regarded as nominal rates, but also had our operational services which allowed us to meet flexibility. So the first service that was used was this flexible gates service. Last year, at the gate of 31st of March, you had the capacity to go beyond the 30%, 75% on the 31st of July, and the 31st of March, 5 shippers had already subscribed that service. We had the capacity to have some additional 400 gigawatt per hour. So these were the start of an unusual injection level. That was the first time. So we started with stored gas higher than the average of the past 4 years. At the gate of 31st of July, we've been extremely successful, and almost half of our customers subscribed that offer, and due to demand, so increased up to 95%. We raised those flexible gates. We have 13 customers, and we reached an additional level of 2.6 TWh. And so that was rather interesting, because, as Gabriel has explained, towards the government, this also showed us beyond the image. We showed that storage was taking place smoothly, and this was reassuring for France and all the gas operators on the national grid. And due to this, because the demand for injection was still favorable, because we still had some specific spreads with very strong interest for injections, at the gate of 31st of October, we gave this possibility to go beyond 100% with 103%, and so we have the first step where each shipper could increase its level of gas stored. At Terregas stage ratio, 3% means 1 TWh and 1 additional. So at this stage, we've had 19 subscriptions, and we had 130. And as Gabriel explained earlier, we had this auction for the remaining terawatt, and we had 14 subscriptions, participants in that auction. And and one of the reasons we've been able to reach the current levels is due to that flexible gate system. The second system we wanted to highlight today is this UBI system, because this gave some of our customers to benefit from some opportunities and also to accelerate injection. We now have the 2/3 of our customers who use this service, some on very occasional moments, and we have some of our clients who use that system on a daily basis. What we have seen is that 96% of the UBI which is subscribed on a daily basis, on daily allocations, is slightly over the results of 2021. So we have UBI, and this is which is almost available every day. And the remaining 4% is not necessarily days where we have reached all the capacities, but this is simply because there are reasons for which there was no interest in injecting or withdrawing. What you should remember is that you have UBI available every day, even on days of high tension, you will have available capacity. Now, if you look at figures, UBI service that was launched, we've had for 3 years now, over the campaign 2019, 2020, 2021, and now we're well above, to go above all of our previous records. For almost 5 TWh were allocated on this UBI, and if you look at 21, 2022, we only have 2.3 TWh. And so we ended up at 5.8 TWh, partly because in December we had a specific injection campaign and we had used a lot of UBI. And for withdrawal, now we've had 1.4 TWh allocated, and at the same time last year we had 700 giga. And despite cutting the UBI in August at withdrawal. So this is our clients use this service on a regular basis and allows you to grasp these market opportunities, and which has favored injection. So we also have 2 new services about in the same philosophy of accelerating injection. So we now have this booster injection, which allows you to increase your nominal capacity by 30%. on a daily basis. This service was set up 3 years ago. Now you have the data, subscription data of this booster injection over the past 3 years, and this first 6 months of 2022-2023, we have already had 748 giga worth of subscription, and this system is well demanded. And when it is subscribed, and we will come back to the description of the service, we can see that 84% of the capacity subscribed are allocated on the day. So we will come back to this description later with explain a few subtleties, but which is interesting for you to boost your injection. And the last service we will also develop later on is the service to help you finance gas in storage, to support partnership with funding and financing partners to help you manage your gas in stock. And we have 2.9 TWh subscribed with a banking partner. And so this is about 10% of Terregas storage capacity. And we will explain this later, that we have 5 financial partners who can help you buy the gas and manage all the banking operations. Well, this was I wanted to say about how you can use the services for the campaigns 2022-2023. Are there any questions about this data? Before I give the floor to Gabriel to tell you about the winter outlook? No, so if there are no specific questions, no? Up to you, Gabriel.
Well, the GRT, of course, that's the exercise, isn't it? It's a seasonal program that's developed by GRT, and there was a press conference with Dominique Moclier recently with the GRT gas teams as well. That was in mid-September, if my memory serves me well, and it shows how the importance of the management of the transport system in winter. And it's very, very important to look at this winter outlook. So we'll look at the take-home messages, in fact, really, even though Dominique already talked about it in his introductory remarks. So, winter outlook, in fact, we're looking at the seasonal balance here in terms of the TRF and the physical infrastructure. How can that ensure the transport of gas in the coming winter? Now, there are 2 components of this. Before we get into the details, there's the press conference, and then during the gas consultation of next week, the GRT will be back to talk about that, and also the additional measures taken by the French administration. But if we look at winter outlook, in fact, there are 2 components of demand. There's the volume, of course, that's the balance, if you like, between supply and demand over the 5 months from November to March. And then there's the capacity of the transport network to meet the peak demands, and these P2 markers. In fact, that's a very important moment. In fact, where we have these peaks which we can anticipate. We try to anticipate. Now, obviously, you are stakeholders with TI for a number of years now. Of course, there's the question of the supply to the region, and in our initial design of TIF, there are physical limits, in fact, which are the congestions, or the congestion limits, which can be met in certain configurations, flow configurations. So when we look at all that, and so we have a tool which is called monitoring of storage. And then there's the storage tool, which is very, very important in the correct balancing of the zone. And we have a tool according to the performance of each storage area to be able to sort of make forecasts about the winter and about the speed of withdrawal, for example, the rate of withdrawal, and to have data about the other areas of the zone, about the PIRs, that's to see the gas pipe PIRs, Pyrenees and Oblaguard and Dunkirk, for example, and the PITTM, the methane terminals like Foss. And the GRT make hypotheses about the flows between these, between the entry and exit. And so we will make forecast simulations, if you like. We'll have several simulations according to a mild winter, a harsh winter, for example, or with particular points, so all of that data will be sort of put into the washer, and we get projections, forecasts. So without going into too much detail, in fact, you'll see that if you participated in the gas concentration next week. But there are two things. We'll see if there are any risks of disequilibrium, in fact, or maybe we don't have enough gas to meet a particular demand at a particular time. And if there's a foreseeable problem of congestion, for example, we know whether the storage is okay, but there might be some congestions at particular points with the particular, and it might be leading to disequilibrium throughout the network. So if we look at this, in fact, this is the demand balance. So that's the whole gas winter. You've got on the left, you've got all the entries. That's all that, of course. These are those that have been developed by the GRT or forecast by the GRT and have been communicated. So throughout the whole winter, for example, we have a marginal but increasing input of methane. We have LNG, which will be coming in as well, and we have the storage withdrawals at about 100, then imports by pipes, that's about 125, and it's obviously that. So why is this a different winter this year to the others? Obviously, this is based on the fact that there's the forecast that there's no longer any Russian gas, of course, coming into the system. Now, obviously, we've got the exports mainly to Belgium, and of course, and this depends on the national demand for electrical generation, and then that's the consumption, the general consumption, that's 309. So that's a sort of usual winter, if like a recent winter. In fact, it's a mix of various winter data we have from the recent winters. So that's the basic balance, if you like. But if we look at all the metrics of these different variables, the French system is working well, and it is robust to be able to meet the requirements of the coming winter without Russian gas. But on the right, we've got a little synthesis of saying that if we have a mild winter, but with a particular, like 3 days where we have a really big demand, just 3 days of very, very harsh cold, then, for example, we have a slight deficit, about 1.4 tera, and it's more than the numbers. In fact, what we're looking at, the sensitivity of the system. In fact, if we have a very harsh winter like 2012, 2013, there we have a greater deficit. And then a very harsh winter like 2010, 2011, the deficit is greater again, a bit lower than 4.7% of winter consumption, but then you can really become sensitive, in fact. So that's the first take-home message, in fact, and that was clear from the press conference in September. That's to say that if we have a winter which is relatively similar to the recent ones, okay, but if it's a harsher winter, then the the system is placed under greater tension. Now, if we look now at the cold peaks occurring in the first part of the winter, in fact, and this depends, and we talked about this over coffee with some of you, yes, of course, this depends on the moment when that cold peak intervenes, when it occurs. LNG is arriving in abundance. The storage is fine, but if it happens at the beginning of the winter, I mean, between November to mid-February, that's the first part of the winter. In fact, if you that's a cold peak occurring, then it is manageable because LNG, we can see that the terminals are pretty much full. Everything's working well, 100%. Imports are working well, obviously excepting Russian gas, of course, but the really important metric is the storage until mid-February. And according to the level of storage that we have, and according with the optimization of what we do, we have the figures that you can see there. Peak 2% to cover the first part of winter. So up to 45% we have storage withdrawals, but if we have a cold peak, obviously, and of course the exports, of course, which will come in, and it's your arbitration as shippers with Switzerland and Italy, for example. But there's also the consumption then, which is a bit lower, just slightly lower than 4 tera. So it's these cold peaks, in fact, between November and February. If it happens, then the system is robust. That the real difference, though. There's only one metric which changes. It's the story. If we have a cold peak that occurs at the end of the winter, then, given the technical characteristics of our storage, with the speed of withdrawal which decreases according in the same rate as the storage volume decreases, we're at 20% in France, and we're 1.4, so we've lost 600 giga per day supply to be able to meet the demand, and some is going to export with a large consumption, in fact, and then the consumption is slightly different, in fact, with a cold snap in January is about 3.7. But if the cold snap occurs in March, I mean it's slightly less cold, but that drop in demand is lower than the loss, the drop which is engendered by the speed of withdrawal, the rate of withdrawal. So that seems self-evident, but when you look at those figures, in fact, it means that can generate a problem of disequilibrium with TRF and problems of congestion according to the way the flows are oriented, in fact. Well, obviously, there's about market factors too, and so if everything is at the maximum, then of course that may engender some problems. So we can resolve the problem here. It's not providing more because the terminals are already full, the gas pipes are full, and the storage is already at its maximum, of course. So with that level of filling. So what we can do is try to anticipate things and optimize the way you withdraw your gas. So then, these are the conclusions, in fact. We can say that there's a risk in case of a cold winter and with a strong use of exports. Obviously, us and the Creux, the ERC, and we must all be vigilant about our usage of storage so that we can tackle the eventuality of a late cold snap or cold peak. Obviously, imports of LNG are doing well. They're going well. We have to still use our LNG at these large volumes, and if possible, and this is a passage we try to get over to you, of course. If you are able, like last year, to re-inject, because the conditions are right for that, obviously we'll be delighted to see you physically re-inject a gas. And as that happened last year, in the last week of the calendar year, it was a fairly mild period of week, and we saw you re-inject. That put a bit more pressure into the storage capacity, and that gave us the wherewithal to really face up to the real cold snaps, cold peaks that came afterwards. So, you know, so with all that we've seen in the last years, and cutting out this Russian gas, of course, we have gas coming in from Spain now, and there were north-south, south-north flows according to the tariff differences in September, but things have been working well there. And with all these scenarios that we've seen, they're all hypotheses based on a strong import of gas, which is south-north from Spain, and with 200 giga per day coming in from Spain, and with all the other factors and all the other configurations, we can see that potentially we can have south-north limits or congestion, and not north-south as happened in previous years. So around about 10%, in fact, on the basis of the figures that I've just showed you. So there's a risk of a 10% risk of an occurrence of a congestion south-north with that scenario. So that's the optimization of all that, and so storage, and that's why we're sort of focusing more on storage, maybe more than in other meetings. The use of storage this winter will be a fundamental factor for getting through the winter. So if you have no more questions for this winter outlook, then I'll go over to Fabrice for maintenance. Sorry, we can't hear that. Well, I'll ask the question because obviously online they couldn't hear that. So the question from Bernard is, he was saying in our hypothesis we're looking at we've kept the same level of exports in March at the beginning of the middle of the winter. It's true, that's our hypothesis that we've made, of course, but they're not set in stone. There are, between the maximum withdrawal and the entries from Spain, of course, what we're reasoning in terms of volumes, in fact, and obviously day to day there are arbitrations that come in fact, but if we're trying to sort of reason and anticipate over a period of 5 or 6 month period, obviously you have to take that sort of configuration, a hypothesis, knowing that on a particular day, for example, our exports will be lower, and maybe the figures will be slightly different because maybe we weren't able to. So obviously the figures might be different on, you know, if you take a particular day, but we're looking at these overall hypotheses. Yes. This is the anticipation we're making. We consider that over the whole of the winter, our overall flow will be around about 200, and given the subscription capacities that we already have and the economic rationale here what we have, we consider we want to be, we can at least try to be conservative, but it might seem that there might be some sort of source concern. I mean, if you look at the figures in one particular way, but while we've tried to factor everything in and to try to reassure reassuring the market with the figures that we have here, we don't want to be overly pessimistic, of course.
Yes, we have now seen the injection campaign, and so Gabriel has given you an outlook for next winter and the difficulties or not for this withdrawal period. And we were speaking about the storage campaign from 2022-2023. We're here to speak about the campaign 2023-24 and look at capacities maybe 25-26 till 2020-25. And now we will be dealing with this section about maintenance, about the years to come and the next auctions. So now we're going to give you information about maintenance for the storage facilities and also maintenance data for transport and the French grid, because transport is necessarily associated with GRT gas. Now, when looking at maintenance operations on our storage facilities, on the right of this slide, you have a reminder of the works and periods of availability over the past 3 years. On the 365 days, if we remove weekends, we have works, maintenance works on our storage facilities, replacing compressors, surface units, water processing units. If you once have the opportunity to come and see one of our facilities, you will see there are always ongoing works, but still which do not prevent our installations from operating. We so far have not published enough on reduction of capacity. In 2021, we've always had 1 day per year of stoppage per year by regulation for safety reasons. We need to carry out tests, and we need to test all our safety valves, and so this is 1 day per year until the French law changes, but this is not likely to happen because it has to deal with security. So in 2022, we had 7 days of impossibility of use. We have not planned to publish about capacity reductions. We will publish 10 days of full stoppage of withdrawal. So we chose the period of June, and early June there will be 2 weeks during which we will not be able to withdraw from our storage facilities. Well, this is for technical reasons, so we have this regularly stoppage. So we have a torch network which connects our 2 reservoirs, and we will have to check and maintain all the essential technical features of this part. So yeah, remember then about these 10 days for 2023, and for the rest of the time all our storage unit will be fully operational. Now, for transport, as you know, so this is partly due to the works carried out on GRT gas. I have separated the part due to Pyrenees entry and exit towards Spain. So with Enagás, we do not regularly publish capacity reductions, but in November we published 12 days because we have the Lacal, which is the main connection between France and Spain. So we have had to replace several kilometers of pipe, and we will have 12 days of stoppage to replace part of this pipe. But 2023, there are no reductions planned. So export towards Spain or import from Spain will be available 100% on the French piping section. There is no problem on Teréga. Now, for PITS, which is common GRT gas, so since TRF, we published 87 days of capacity reductions due to works on the GRT gas network, because if any works happens in north or eastern parts of the grid. So this, we have this functioning of gas coming from the north towards the south. So we published 87 days of capacity reduction in 2021. We had 84 days in 2022, and this and 87 days 2021, and in 2022 we came back to an availability rate at 91%. So 2023 the schedule is still under construction and there is no maintenance on the Teréga network, but from that north-south grid the figures will be the same as this year. Now if you look at Teréga network, we do not have a pipe unavailable, which may cause reductions on the TRGF grid from the north-south. We remain on the same data as 2022, but for us this year we have some installations which are almost 100% available. And this is important and essential for you, because when you wish to value your storage products, you always ask us about the maintenance plan. So if you want to have a conservative option, so you will look at the maintenance calendar we had in 2022 from the north to south. This year we had some maintenance days south to north, but this has no impact on our injection capacity. So if you want to have a conservative position, look at the same days of reduction in 2022. If you want to have a more aggressive position, and what you must know is that injections may not be impacted by our maintenance program, because we will all year round be able to inject 300 giga per day, which is the nominal capacity for all of our products. So from south to north, there will be, you can consider there will be no reductions in capacity, and from the north-south, look at the figures that were published for 2022. Now, for the last slide, referring to maintenance, you will find all this information on our customer portal. So we have slightly modified access to maintenance. Now, you could see that under transport, and we have developed a specific entry under storage. So you will reach this page, and this will give you information about capacity reduction in transport and storage. And you will also have access to information and to access to a website called Audrey, which gives you open data on networks and energy on the French grid, and this open data page. All this is available from our customer portal. We'll tell you about reduction capacities at the end of November. But if you want to start assessing the value of your storage products, we will have 10 days of reduction in withdrawal. But as I told you earlier, you can look at the figures of 2022. So I think I have now reached the end of this section about storage. So we invite you to take a break for 10 minutes, a coffee break. And for those people who are following this meeting online, you can also have a break, and we'll be back here at 11:20. So this will allow time for discussion, and we will resume with the presentation of all the products and storage offers.
Fair enough. No, it's good. It's good. No, because at the end, what we do is simply the cache that we currently have, or we have a new optimization schema because we never looked at cache before, and now we say we allocate it where it's best or where it's most valuable. So we sometimes in power plants because they generate 80 years and storage is 40. Don't do it. How can you do that? How can you miss that?
11h25. Merci Lucie, on est juste à temps. Bon, on est tous là.
Okay, everybody's back now for the second part of our session.
C'est bizarre. Ils ont appris à parler français.
Okay. Okay, it's time to resume our session, and we'll now move on to the storage offer, products and services. We'll tell you about the calendar, the schedule, and Patrick will tell you about the customer portal and all the added and new services. The products have not changed because we have not brought any major changes in our offer, and since we redesigned our products and we removed the flex and we adjusted the speeds, we have remained stable and kept our products. So we have 3 products which you know which volume is the regulated parameter that says 33.1 TWh, and so we have 500. This means 556 gigawatt hour per day. So we have 3 products. The fizz, which accounts for about 2/3 in our offer with 22.1 TWh. So over 85 days, actual days of withdrawal. So we have the fair product, which is slower in 110 days, and we have the fast on a small volume but faster volumes in 40 actual days. So these are the 3 products which you know, and they all have the same in nominal and real injection speed, and you can fill this in 110 effective days. So, well, these, now you have the details of all these products, as well as these in nominal and actual speeds, and you see the evolution factors for withdrawal, and you also have the gates, and you have these time constraints which are important, and Fabrice will develop this and tell you how we can work on the flexibility of these gates. But when starting a year, the standard gates will apply. The first one is 31st of July, which is a flexible gate, and with a minimum of 30% of filling and maximum 75%. Then comes the gate of 31st of October, which is a contractual obligation of the regulatory obligation. You can so you can have a minimum of 85% of filling capacity before you start the winter, and then you have our third gate at the end of the year on 31st of December, by which you can have withdrawn a little bit and being at a maximum of 90% at the end of December and still having 45% in storage. Then we have the gate of 28th of February, by which you must have a minimum of 10% to avoid any massive and intensive withdrawal until late. So we must keep some gas in storage, a minimum of 10%, and you can still have a maximum storage of 55%, and by the 31st of March, you can have used all your storage capacity, or you can still have 40% in storage, and this is also a flexible gate. And I will allow Fabrice to develop the details of all this. So these gates apply to these two products, Fizz and Fair. Then we have our fast offer on a very small volume of 1.60 WH, which still means a relevant part of our withdrawal capacity over 40 days, and we can have no time constraints on this product because it accounts for a small volume and does not have much impact on the operational capacity of the reservoir, and with a single gate is the 31st of October. So if you've only got fast with us, so we must have a minimum of 85% of your capacity by the 31st of November. All of this information is just a reminder. Nothing has changed since last year, but we have now added, and Fabrice is going to tell you, give you an overview of what we used to do and what we'll be doing in the future. Unless we have any questions about these products, I will give the floor to Fabrice.
Oui. Une porte, oui, alors non, en fait, alors, oui, c'est les portes flexibles.
Okay, sorry, I didn't hear the question. So the 5 gates that I have mentioned are the minimum and maximum gates which are imposed and with the associate products, and which apply to these Fizz and Fair products. And during the year, in the course of the year,
Oui. Ah, d'accord. Oui. Non, effectivement, oui, oui, tout à fait, ok, j'ai pas vu. Oui, oui, c'est ça. C'est-à-dire que là, pour l'instant, ça a des discussions qui ont été...
Well, some discussions, there have been many debates. We had many debates with our authorities over the summer and saying, yes, we have European obligations, there are some new decrees or new measures that can do these new measures apply in our contracts. And we had already, we said this should not appear in our contracts. And so we had this obligation of storage of 85%. Still, the government decided to have a storage capacity to 100%. So there was this collective effort requested from us, but there's some incentives. And we know that there are some countries have financial incentives, and all these are ideas from our authorities. In our contract at Store Energy, the contracts will refer to 85%, even if the regulatory obligation is 90%. So if there is a gap between, and if we are likely to be below the levels imposed by the regulation, who will decide? And so these are new texts and decisions we are still discussing with the authorities. Okay, now services.
Well, just to add to what Sebastian was saying, if you look at the European regulations, for each of the values that are supplied, there's a tolerance of 5%. Not for the 1st of November, in fact, that we should be at 90% there on the 1st of November. And you with storage, you'll see that half of the storage should already contractually be at 90%. Now, and on the French grid, we've already been above 90% historically, but what's most important for you is that not all these data are contractual, and by the 31st of October, we will have the figures, we will have the storage capacity that's announced. So these are the nominal capacities, and as we were saying earlier on regarding injection, to these services we add some new services, and so I'll try to be as short and to the point as possible to go over these additional services 23-24. The first is the booster injection. So what does the booster injection allow you to do? You can increase your nominal capacity up to 30%. You choose your rate on our gate between 0 and 30%, and on a given day or over a given period you can increase your day rate up to 30%. It's interruptible, and since it's interruptible in terms of the cost of transport, you're paying it half price. In fact, that represents 4.4 centimes per megawatt. It's not great given the spread that we've had. So this is a service which has been quite subscribed in recent times, and it's interruptible. The main cause of interruptibility is the TRF congestion points. And coming back to what I was saying earlier, we're normally in a sort of a south-north schema now, which a schema where we haven't had any congestions and we haven't had any interruption. So, but it's not proposed on a maintenance day. But when it's available, and it's available, it's never been cut. So that's why you're able to subscribe just the day before the next day, up to 8 p.m. because normally you've got that sort of, we have that sort of vision of any potential congestion on the TRF grid, and so we're beginning to get that sort of very good vision here of TRF. But if we're in a south-north framework, the probability of downtime on the booster is almost nil. It's very low anyway. So looking at if you look at the customer portal, you have all the data for the whether it's gas from Spain. Then you know you know if you want to subscribe, and you can do so until 8 p.m. on the day before. You're only paying for the transport, so 4.4 centimes per megawatt. That's half price. So we can also associate UB here. So you can use some subscribe booster injection, and if during the day you would like to increase your injection, you can double it up with UBI. And UBI, it's well known, of course, it's the service which allows you to benefit for the capacity which is available on any given day. And you can see here on this graphic here between the allocated park and this extra margin. If there is additional capacity, then intraday you can subscribe that extra capacity, and Patrice was talking about it here. We already have decision making tools which allows us to decide how much UB is available in real time, and you know that just the day before what that capacity will be. So this is a free service. You only pay the transport here, but since you only pay the allocated part, you pay it at a firm fixed price. So injection, it's 8.8 euros per megawatt, and for withdrawal, it's lower than 4 centimes per megawatt. So it's interruptible, and for the reasons that Gabriel was talking about earlier, there was downtime on it, maintenance this summer, or for congestion. It is an interruptible service, but it's a service which is there available. Regarding UB, this year we haven't encountered any congestion on the TRF grid, but you can't. So when you can't use UB to respond to locational spreads. That's the first important point. And the second point is that last year we explained that if there is an imbalance, in fact, we limit UB. And there's a rule which is implemented in our contract. So if you use UB but intraday it creates too great an imbalance on TRF or on the Terry grid, we can reduce your demand. So try to use this sparingly. UB is something which is available 96% of the time. Obviously, don't overuse it, and if it generates any disequilibrium at the end of the day, for example, then UB can be interrupted at any given moment because it's interruptible by definition, and we might refuse your nomination if there's excessive use of the service. So that's two services which allow you to boost infection or withdrawal, and which allow you to accelerate your service. And another one which provides greater adaptability and certainly increases your performance with the auctions. It's a product which is called Storage Expand. And this is the example of a shipper who has 1 tera capacity for 22-23, and for 23-24 has subscribed only 300 giga, for example. So he, through Fees and Fair, normally these contractual services at the 31st of March, he can only have 400 giga. But unfortunately, he's only subscribed 300 giga. Okay, so in that in Schema, obviously, it's only not 40%; it's 30% gate. Yes, he can't have 40%. He has to go down to 30%. But with Storage Expand, for 2 months, he can conserve a level of storage which is greater than that already subscribed. So if you get to the 31st of March and you can use that sort of extra period of time, those 2 months, to modify your storage. So it gives you that sort of easier sort of management of your storage if during your auctions you've acquired less than 40% of your storage capacity. If you have any questions on that, then please fire away. Another service which you already know, because we see a few messages coming through on our portal, it's the secondary market. Sorry, we can't hear this. I'll repeat the question. So people who are benefiting from Storage Expand, what's the withdrawal capacity? What's the nominal flow which can be made between the 1st of April and the 31st of May? It's the capacity which is stipulated in a new contract, with all the flexibility of the companies. If you want to accelerate this with UB, for example, you can benefit from that too. Now, regarding the secondary market, it's a product. You already know this. We regularly we make publications here. It's a totally free service. For example, if you have a storage capacity or gas already storage and you'd like to acquire some capacity, you can publish on the secondary market either an offer or a request. If you've got capacity, we can publish it. For example, if you want to get some more capacity, we can also publish it on this secondary market. How does it work? So you send us a message through this tool. Okay, you want someone a bit of 500 giga of fizz. We publish it on the secondary market, and then in parallel, we inform all of our client portfolio, all the clients. We say, okay, there's this offer which is underway. You connect to the secondary market, and when you have the rights, we've encountered one or two little computer bugs recently on that, but that's all now ironed out. But you've got a box where you can click, and then your contact is already then sent to the person who is either selling or wants to acquire some new capacity. And if you've acquired, if you reach a deal, then you come back to us. Then we just have the transfer of capacity, which is realised. It's a tripartite agreement which is signed, and then it becomes operational. Then, this is really topical, this tool. In fact, we've got quite a lot of requests. This is a capacity transfer for financing gas in storage. If you find a financial partner in Fractal, then you can sign a tripartite agreement. For example, you have the shipper who has acquired capacity through the auctions and has that capacity, finds an agreement, strikes up an agreement with the financial partner, and through our contract, the financial partner then can become the owner of the gas in storage and an owner of the storage capacity. So Terega will send the invoices to that operator, and then that financial partner will delegate all the daily operational operations to the CEDA. And since this, so we have the access to the transport interface, already the rights to that is acquired, and it's possible to acquire it, and we send the invoice to the financial partner, and so then he or they manage it as manage the capacity, just as if it been the shipper was managing the capacity. The financial partner must provide us financial guarantees, and therefore the tripartite agreement is agreed. This has been working well for the last 4 years now. We have financial partners who we can actually give you the data of those people, the details, and it's a system. If you're looking for financial partners, we can send data to the financial partners to tell them what you're doing with the gas. We can give them a daily report. We can adapt to your requirements, but we can keep the financial partner abreast of everything that's going on a day-to-day basis. So, flexible gates. We're going to be renewing this service this year. Nothing changes, in fact. We'll still have these flexible gates for time constraints of the 31st of July and 31st of March. But the new thing with the 31st of July is contractually, until last year, you were able to have just 90% of the gas in storage, but contractually now, in order to avoid any excessive agreements, your writing and administrative work, you can go up to 100%. So on the 31st of July, for example, we will keep you informed of that. If you're at 90%, well, we'll tell you if you want to go to 100%, we'll tell you if you can do it. This service is interruptible. And as I was telling you this over coffee, in fact, it's a service which depends mainly on our maintenance and our. If, for example, we have a lot of injection at a particular time, we create a lot of pressure in our storage, and that increases exponentially. So we can't go beyond 75% of a storage gas in storage. But if we have a sort of a moderate injection campaign and the pressure is reasonable, then we can increase the rate of injection through July and give you that possibility of going up to 100% of gas in storage at the 31st of July. So for these two services, that we inform you of this at the latest 2 months before the 31st of July, so that you know. So for the 31st of July, you would know about this by the 31st of May. So you would know if you are able to increase your gas in storage up to 100%. So this service remains unchanged. It will continue this year, and until now, we paid this 15 centimes per megawatt until now, but everything's increasing. It's going up to 30 centimes per megawatt. Why 30? Because when we offer this sort of service, the Energy Regulation Commission asks us to propose a service which is not going to be create an add-on to the final end user. So so this cost has to be incurred or absorbed, and so this involves energy OPEX just because we've seen that people who are subscribing to this service will inject or withdraw more, and it creates more OPEX. So we've increased it up to 30 centimes per megawatt hour in order to sort of offset the increase in the difference between gas and electricity prices. So apart from the price which changes, and the 900, nothing is really changing. In fact, you still have at least 2 months to take your decision. And so basically this is the same service that's been rolled out until now. We are now adding what we call new flexible gates. It concerns 2 new gates, the 31st of December and the 29th February. We're talking about 2024, of course, which is a leap year. Okay, 29th February. Gabriel was talking earlier about for Fizz and Fair, for 31st of December, you can't have more than 90% of gas in storage, and on the end of February, not more than 55%. Now, these are more severe operational constraints than you have at the end of March or January, but you can have a flexibility of about 500 gigawatts for all of our storage. So just as we did to selling the 130 last giga, in fact, we will organize another auction at the latest 1 month before the final date. It will be pay-as-bid auction. You formulate a bid, and you are able to acquire up to 500 giga. So, if a shipper manages to recover all of his capacity, he could have almost 100% of his gas in storage at the end of December. So, there's no limit in terms of the percentage. Obviously, 100% is the maximum, of course, but you have a flexibility according to what you're going to subscribe and propose. So it will be an auction 1 month before the 31st of December and the 29th of February, with a reserve price of 30 centimes per megawatt hour. Now, this concerns 23-24, okay? It's not for this December 22, okay? And now, if there are any opportunities, of course, which arise, of course, we might be able to develop that, but this concerns the contractual arrangements for 23-24. So this is the new flexible gate then, because as Gabriel said, well, obviously, we're looking at stability here. The watchword is keep the products in storage, and these are products that you know, these are services that you're familiar with, that you already know, you already use, and the ambition was not to change everything all in one go, but just to sort of, add a little extra touch here, which gives you that extra flexibility on a volume, which seems fairly derisory, but it's 500 giga. If you're interested for the 31st of December, there might be quite a lot of people who would like to have that sort of little add-on. So there we have it for the offer of the three services, the three products, of all the additional services, and you've got the overall vision for what's going to coming for 23 and 24. So before we look at the new marketing calendar and store place, if anybody has any questions on the services, I'll be delighted to take them. If we have then no further questions, I'll hand over to Gabriel, who's going to be talking about the new marketing calendar.
Yes, we're going to tell you about the new calendar because after a consultation meeting on storage in May, we looked at the previous auctions, and the auctions finished last February. We had some auction, but we had this meeting with Storengy, the Creux, and we're willing to anticipate this new marketing campaign. So we said, looking at the volatile prices and the spread that turned negative for a long period of time, we wondered how we could adjust in addition to the measures each operator can make, is there anything we can do on a calendar point of view to add flexibility to the operations? So we had these talks together, so we had a public consultation carried out over the summer, and we received information from the ERC today. And the idea says, well, the operators are going to offer you now different operations, and when we entered this regulation by 2018, the purpose was to give you in October the overall maintenance schedule, as well as the schedule of the auctions over the whole winter and June, and this is why we used to show you a calendar with action to be made in November with very precise and detailed information. And if the auctions were taking place on the days where the spreads were favorable, that was fine. Otherwise, this was not different. As you may have seen, Storengy has made many new operations, and the purpose was establish new and more flexible rates so that we can market when the conditions are most favorable. And so you have the key points here is that we no longer have auction windows in June and November. So the windows, auctions of January and February will remain, and June and November auction windows will disappear. Does not mean that the operators can must no longer market in June or November, but they have also the flexibility to do it all year round. The idea is that the operators can organize auctions all along the year while retaining a minimum volumes for the January and February auctions, and they must keep at least 30% of the marketable capacity for the year +1. And so 30% of means 10 terawatts, and as long as these rules are valid, Teréga will offer 10 terawatt-hour for the next year. And for the rest of the year, you can do what you want. The purpose also would be to say that when we used to have some auction days or rolling days, which can change. And so, well, for example, at Teréga, we have the Wednesday, and the ERC said, okay, we will keep these days because this is where there is higher demand. But if you need to have an auction on Monday or a Friday, I mean, this is possible, so if there is a real need.
Maintenant, quand on organisera des enchères,
Now, when we
donc,
organize an auction
entre février et novembre,
between
tout au long de l'année, si on
February and November, that's say all the year round, if we wish so, we will have the obligation to give you 2 days notice
si au mois de juin
before
ou de mai,
the
on voit qu'il y a
auction.
des conditions favorables,
So
on commence à
if in May or
commercialiser, on peut
auction
jusqu'à 2
we
jours
will
avant
we see that the conditions are favorable, we will advise you 2 days before, and the purpose for us is to adopt these added flexibility rules while giving you best possible visibility. The idea is actually not to prevent ourselves from organizing an auction if the market conditions are favorable, but of course, if we see that the conditions are very negative on the spread, you'll have the option to remove your auction. In January and February, so we will have the obligation to inform you as early as December about the 30% of marketing capacity, and you will know about these figures early December. All the reserve prices will be at 0 for every single auction capacity for N+1. So that means that in May 2023, if we start marketing storage capacity for the year 24-25, the reserve price will be at 0, which was not the same, because reserve prices at 0 only started in October. So everything now which is N year +1, 2, 3, or 4, the formula spread minus cost will remain. We've also added some other measures in order to promote at the end of the campaign in February or March to remarket unsold capacities at additional dates with some bonded products for several years on the basis of first in, first served. And the operator may not necessarily have to say, to announce the auction, and the auction will also be a little permanent, but only in cases of unsold capacities. So everything will be publicized, and you will receive all this information. Well, this is the great outline of all these new measures, and what I told you, of course, is that we want to give you visibility. Here is then the schedule, our auction calendar, which we will abide by, except there's any disaster. And so this is an interruptible calendar. We'll try, of course, not to interrupt it, but the idea is to start as early as next week on Wednesday, 19th of October, after having had a summer with unfavorable market conditions. We see there's an improvement on the spreads. We have a stable offer. So we'll start our auctions next Wednesday, 19th of October. So Teréga, we have Wednesdays as a priority days, which have been assigned, allocated to us, and with selling fees in the morning and fair in the afternoon. So we market one product at 11 and the other one at 3 p.m. with the volumes you can see in the right column. The following week, 26th of October, so we'll sell fees on 4.7 terawatts in the morning, and if we manage to sell them, plus, let's say 4.7 plus 5, so we'll have to wait now for the gates of January. And then we will move on to 24-25th offer, which is on years of advanced storage, and we will start marketing for 24-25, and on the 9th of November we'll start selling for 25-20, 26, 26-27 on small volumes, because we do not have much visibility, and this is why the regulatory body has not allowed us, has not given more capacity. So this means very small volumes for us. In January and February, in January, On the 11th and 18th of January, we will only sell at N year plus 1, 5.5 tariff for fees, 3 for fair, and 1.6 for fast if everything runs smoothly. That's and you already know, familiar with this last product. On the 24th and 25th, we, for several year offers, we will have the possibility on these pluriannual contracts, and we'll have the capacity to go as far as 3 terawatts, but this is just an indication. So, if we consider that the market conditions are not favorable, propitious, of course, but as much as possible, we wish to abide by this calendar, and you can almost take it for granted, and it will be confirmed to you, because Wednesday, 19th of October is next week, and so by the end of this week, of course, you will receive a confirmation, and as we go, so we will let you know about these proposals. I am not showing you because we do not know ourselves what we will do doing next year, and I cannot tell you about our marketing calendar for next year. Shall we start in April or October? This will depend on the context and of the previous sales, on the spread campaigns, and this is why we will, in the past we used to, now we have more flexibility. And to prepare you, even, and we'll have a test auction, a blank auction, which will take place this Thursday, 13th of October, and to make sure that we receive your bids and that our store place platform is fully operational, and to make sure that all people bidding have the proper delegation and power to bid on behalf of their company. So this then, and the closing time of this auction will be 11 a.m. and the platform will be open one day before, and we will close at 11 with some fictitious allocations at 11. So this is the calendar. Are there any questions, or is everything clear?
Dominicus has a question. Alors, la question de Dominicus de RWE,
okay, Dominicus's questions is what if the spreads are very strongly negatives, or if the prices are more negative? Have you planned for this? And the answer is no. We discussed about this in this public consultation, but the ERC said for a certain number of reasons we had already contemplated many years ago that we cannot accept negative bids, and so we have this reserve price at 0, and this is why there's the interest and possibility to change the calendar and not to offer auctions if the conditions are extremely bad or if the market value is unfavorable. And so we can just shift the calendar and also can anticipate, and also financial incentives are not available in France as in other countries. So we will only make adjustments on the basis by changing the dates of our auction, and this is more favorable on the PEC than on the TTF. If there are no further questions, I will now give the floor to Patrice Bede, who will tell you about the proposal. Well, yeah, just a few practical information about this blank auction. Last week, you received individual mail messages about, powers. And so we need to define the people who can represent your companies during this blank auction. Everybody can participate in the blank auction. There will be no filter. We'll open this auction the day before for you to retrieve, to find your passwords and to use. If you manage to reach capacity, you will receive managed as if it were a real auction. Of course, we're speaking of a blank auction without any capacity allocation. But of course, for the auction for the week after, unless we have received the power of attorney to represent the company, we will not be able to allow you to participate. So this is an important reminder. So make sure you update all your information and give us the power of attorney here.
Merci. Merci, messieurs. Bon, je vais effectivement vous présenter 3 écrans dans le portail.
So, I'm going to throw you 3 screens on the portal, which show you how efficient you can be with your storage. But just before we do that, just go and have a look at our organization. Fabrice and Gabriel, who are part of that storage team, they deal with all the partners in green here, and our customer service department, together with Philippe Gus, we do the parts 5, 6, and 7 in blue. So all those are back office, which manages your subscription and billing. Commercial dispatching, that's Philippe Saint-Paul's department, which manages on a day-to-day basis all of your operations. And then there's the dispatching department, which I'm in charge of, and the conveying department, and then we make sure that all the tools that you need are on the portal. So just a few words about the portal. We began with 2018 with the first Ambassador Club. The idea being to co-construct the portal together with you. The first key date was April 2019, where we launched the portal in this room, and since then we've been improving it thanks to your input. For example, last week we had a club ambassador number 6 here in Paris, in a very nice setting, conducive to creation. We first presented the screens that we said we would roll out in the previous club as a result of your feedback, and then we worked on 4 subjects: the help for nomination, alerting, APIs, and EDIGAS. So there was very fruitful discussion took place during this club, and I'd like to thank all of those who were there, and please do come and join us at club number 7. It's really great. That'll be held in June 23, so please don't hesitate. You're most welcome to participate in that discussion. So I'll present 3 screens. Very first, I'll move over the first 2 because these are screens which are fairly traditional, but I'll take a little bit more time to present the 3rd screen because I think it really does give you added value. The first one, which is a screen concerning subscribed capacity in storage, you have all the subscription data here, which shows you in a very ergonomic way all the data that you need and all your subscription and storage data. The second screen here shows you to monitor your storage on a day-to-day basis. And so you've got the data where you have your level of storage, your programming, the maximum injection threshold and withdrawal threshold. I won't dwell on that, that's fairly familiar for you, but I'm spending a little more time on this one. This is a typical example of what we can co-construct together. Starting from a blank white sheet of paper, and we've got something totally new here. The idea is to collate all the necessary information on an hourly basis on the day, on the current day, and be it at PITS storage or at PITT Pyreneos, or the Superpoint TRF when on days of maintenance. So according to what I select at the top here, we have information here. We have the most salient information so that concern your contracts, so that you can manage your contracts as efficiently as possible. We've taken the day here, gas day on the 7th of March, for example. Then we've got the information on the next day, and then we add a link to the previous page that I showed you earlier, the previous screen. So we will also add your imbalance on the whole TFR region. In the central area, we have the UB in both directions, okay? Is it open? Yes, no? What remains available? How much are we offering at the beginning of the day? And the percentage that represents. And then you will have a booster block which tells you whether you have subscribed on that day or not, and the quantity, the additional quantity you can still subscribe to. So on the graphic then, the first vertical line, the orange vertical line, represents the time, the real time, the time it is now. The red line, that's the deadline to re-nominate if you would like your nomination to be taken into account on the green line. So that means the yellow line is the quantities which have all been allocated. So we've withdrawn from 6 to 9 o'clock in the morning, and then we've gone to injection, okay? So in the yellow hatched line, that represents the forecast for the rest of the day if things stay as they are. So I'm between the blue and the mauve line. The blue is the maximum quantity of injection that I have available, and then the mauve is the maximum that I have in my rights. So if I'm in the middle, I'm fine. But I can see that I can move out of my rights, and the first thing to do that I need to do is to come out of UB. I see the quantity available, but I can still respect the disequilibrium or the imbalance. So I have all of the operational data that I need to be able to optimize my storage capacity within the day. Is that clear to everybody? Now, last year we made these sheets available. They describe the UB and booster services and Optim and the optimal way they are managed. So please don't hesitate. All of these information sheets are available in the guide on the portal, so please don't hesitate, you get them. And there's something which is new for 2022. and it will be produced either today or tomorrow. In fact, we have this new guide which will be published and in a few pages, in fact, you can see really what the main pages are on main screens are on the portal to be operational, and you'll have that available in My Data, in fact, on the portal. That's just coming, so that's being published actually today or tomorrow. So there we are. That's my brief overview of those three screens. So do you have any questions? Well, I'll read the question, in fact. It's 2 days before the end of the auction. That's the delay. It's 2 days before the end of the August. Philip didn't mention that, but that's what is in the project. So if you organise the auction at Wednesday, and the date of closure is Wednesday at 11 a.m., then we have until Monday, the previous Monday, to publish it. But the auction is open until 24 hours before the deadline, so it'll be open until the 11 a.m. on the Tuesday, in fact. So we have until the Monday, 48 hours before, to tell you basically what's going to be happening 48 hours later. So just a few words of conclusion to finish off the morning of this annual meeting here. Obviously, we're in a particular context here, and obviously, you've seen that Dominique has got these messages over, these take-home messages, and throughout the morning we've got these take-home messages. Obviously, the context is rather specific, where there's this pressure, this overall pressure, political pressure, in fact, which has come back into the equation. We've had to factor this back into our thinking. We mustn't underestimate the fact that we are expected to perform well this coming winter, and if that doesn't happen well, we mustn't underestimate the political pressure that might be exerted upon us and the possible modifications that might intervene in regulatory terms. And obviously we have to bear this in mind. We've had upstream negotiations before the injection program, and things worked out well because we have a regulatory system which we've constructed together, which works well, in fact, and we've seen that compared with other countries where, whereas in France, we have no real constraints, in fact, and all of the gas that's in the system is gas that you put into the system. That's why the system works well. So this watchword that we have to understand is that we're within our role, but we have to make sure that this system continues to work well. A system that until now has been given the proof of the pudding in it, and we've seen that it works well. So really, that's the take-home message. That because obviously there are considerable constraints, of course, which are underway. The second message for who are final end users on the transport grid, obviously it's a very particular situation for us as operators, because all of our clients are having to deal with all of these new mechanisms which are being set up, and all the mechanisms which allows us to make sure that the interruptibility is guaranteed, the limitation of consumption, of course, throughout the winter, and the possible cutting off of gas. And so, together with our industrial clients, and some of them are the same clients as yours, of course, so we had to inform them clearly about what the situation is and the situation that we all have to face at the moment throughout this winter. And it's true that they obviously feel a little bit sort of powerless and of course dependent very much on us to make sure that everything really works out well. So it's a rather particular period, and so as operators in the market, and you've seen this with all the offers that we've made available, we're maintaining an offer which is as efficient as possible. We'll be also implementing measures that safeguard the flexibility of the offer and trying to maximize our storage capacity. Of course, these are the watchwords and the take-home messages. So really, that's what we wanted to say today. Even next week, we have the auction, so many of you will be participating in those auctions. Conditions are largely favorable for the selling of storage, and we hope that remains so. That we hope that we don't have to sort of modify things on the way as the winter advances. So thank you then, all of you. Thanks for all of you who are online as well, connected online and watching from far afield. And obviously would like to welcome you now to dine together for a moment of friendship, and people, all of the people from Tariga are here to answer any questions you may have. Thank you very much for your attention.
Okay.